And welcome to the Starting 11. I am Will West alongside my partner, Chris Carroll. Here's what we do. Every single week, we give you the top 11 topics in the world of soccer every single Monday. Again, just subscribe. We're here every Monday for you. We did the show on sports radio for a couple of years, and now that we brought it to YouTube, we're excited to be here. Chris, how are you today, sir?
Thanks, Will. How are you doing, mate?
Well, your Wolves took care of my Spurs this weekend in tidy fashion, so not particularly happy. I'll just say that.
Well, that was an upset of the week, if ever there was one. But rode the luck a bit, Wolves did, I think. But yeah, it was whoever scored took their chances. Spurs hit the bar a couple of times and Wolves nicked it. So, yeah, I'll take that one. I think we need the points more than you.
Yeah, here's how we do it. We do the top 11 topics in the world of soccer. Every single Monday, we give them to you. And more of an EPL bend than anything else, or an English soccer bend. Biggest league in the world right now, so that's kind of why we do it that way. Chris is from Wolverhampton, England, now located in Knoxville, Tennessee. I am in Knoxville, Tennessee as well. Like, subscribe, comment, or don't. I'm not your dad, so I can't tell you what to do. All right, let's get to point number one, Chris, and get right to it. What is fueling Liverpool's turnaround right now?
Yeah, they have had a turnaround. Bit of a result for them yesterday. Want it 7-0 against Man United. Yeah, not bad at all, that. I think it's consistency, Will, to be honest with you. I think they've spent some money on some forward players in particular. They've taken a bit of bedding in, so to speak, to the English game. Nunes himself admitted how different it was to what he was used to, how much faster it is and more physical to what he was used to. So I think, and Gakpo likewise, but I think they've had consistency over the last, since the new year. They've been playing Nunes, Gakpo, Salah, those three, Jota in and out here and there as well. But it's given them time. They've had the consistency, and it's given them time to gel. Not a great deal else has changed, really. Harvey Elliott's doing well in midfield now as well. A young Harvey Elliott. He's chipping in, he's supporting the attack and threatening and getting the goal or two. So I think it's a confidence thing. They've had the consistency, confidence. They've all scored. They all scored yesterday. And Firmino as well, and not much else has changed really, So it's amazing what goals do for strikers. It's a huge confidence thing. They just hit a ball and expect it to go in instead of sort of overthinking it and and thinking it through too much, and it doesn't go right. So yeah, I think they've been consistent with their selection, and now it's coming good.
I think that Virgil van Dijk coming back has made a huge difference, because I think that there was a stretch there while they were trying to figure out the midfield, and they figured out the midfield, where they kind of rotating in different midfield players, but they were having to stay there and hold a little bit. Liverpool's at its best. Jurgen Klopp team's at its best when the midfielders can get forward, the fullbacks are rushing forward, and then it's just kind of a constant fast break and nobody else knows what to do. But you can't really do that if you don't have Virgil van Dijk there in the center. And I don't think it's just his presence, but I think that it's verbally him coaching everyone at the back as well in what they need to be doing and when they need to be doing it. But when those midfielders have to work on holding, Liverpool's not the same club to get as far as getting forward and reversing play and all of the things that we know Jurgen Klopp's team does. But I do think that right when we see Virgil van Dijk come back, they get the middle of that figured out. They had the midfield kind of rotation figured out maybe a week or two before Virgil van Dijk comes back, and all of a sudden Liverpool's playing like we know Liverpool can. I'll agree with you though. Gakpo and Nunes, I think those two guys getting caught up to speed with the English game has helped. Jota being back, I think that helps. So they're healthy all at the right time. It really is just everything's coming together all at once for them. They got healthy. The players that they bought on from other leagues are kind of getting caught up to speed. And having Virgil van Dijk there in the center, having him, having Becker, and those guys kind of barking out orders to the back four allows those fullbacks to get forward. It allows those midfielders to get forward. And that is a very tough team to deal with when they are able to get forward like that. But they struggle when they can't just get forward like that.
Yeah, you're right. Van Dijk, he's a big plus. It's like having Big Brother back, and he's looking after everybody. And they did miss him a lot. He's been back, and yeah, you're right. It's no surprise really that no coincidence, should say, that their form has improved with him coming back into the team. Jota likewise, they got him back healthy as well. But yeah, you can still get at them if you can get the ball and you can break and you catch Alexander-Arnold, Robertson high up the field. then there's still space. You'll still be able to get at them, but they'll outscore you because of when the forwards are firing, and their forwards haven't been firing. But now that's clicking as well. So it's sort of watch out, everybody, because they seem to be back where they were.
All right, from Liverpool to the other side of that massive defeat, United. What is the 7-0 loss, worst loss in the history of Manchester United? What does that say about the current club?
It tells me that the team under pressure aren't great. And I watched. I didn't see all of the game, but I watched. Actually, I saw most of the second half, and it told me that Bruno Fernandes isn't a leader of men. He's not a guy that you wanted in the trenches with you, because he basically quit. He was stomping around like a child who that couldn't get his way, and they just stopped playing. And for me, that really is unforgivable. It was 1-0 at halftime, and it could have gone either way at that point. And then just to collapse the way they did. Yes, Liverpool played well, but they just they genuinely collapsed. And to me, it just shows that it looks great while it's going their way. Everything's fantastic. And do they have the character? Do they have the character when under pressure? If Roy Keane had been their captain yesterday, he'd have got them all going. He wouldn't have quit. Fernandes quit. He's not the guy you want leading your troops. So I think they might have to have a look at that.
Yeah, look, I think that I've had trouble buying into United. I mean, they have massive payroll, and then you finally got Ten Hag, who's a fantastic manager there. And it made sense to me that they were winning. But there was something that bothered me about the number of shots that they had given up. If you look at United, really just over the last month of the season, give up 19 shots to Leicester, 18 shots in the first leg to Barcelona, 15 shots to Newcastle, 16 to Leeds. I don't know that I saw this coming, but I did think at some point in time, gracious, they are just giving up so many shots. And how many times have you seen David De Gea bail them out in a situation where they easily could have lost a match? And so to see them get beat, I expected Liverpool to win that match. I really did, with the way that Liverpool was playing right now. Did I expect it to be 7-0? Did I expect it to be the worst defeat in the history of Manchester United? I did not. But there's something that you pointed out for months, Chris, about that United team. Still a little sketchy at the back end. And man, did it rear its head in that match. And you're right, they laid down. It was 1-0 right at the end of halftime. My dog goes nuts, and so I go take her for a walk. And I come back, and it's 6-0. And I'm like, what in the world has happened here? And then they add the 7th. I mean, it escalated so unbelievably quickly. And you're right. But we have talked about this about United as well. When it gets tough, when you watch a group of players that you've watched lay down before and quit, you can't help but think that there's going to be a time that they're going to quit again. If somebody has that in them, it's going to rear its head over and over again. And these United players, until you're right, maybe Bruno Fernandes isn't the guy. He needs to be a role guy as opposed to trying to be the leader of men. But that group of guys has quit on how many managers at this point? I don't think they quit altogether on Ten Hag at this point, but they quit on a lot of managers. And I think you're going to have to bring somebody in with some steel to maybe be the captain of that team during the offseason.
Yeah, it was like turning the clock back. 6 months, 8 months, wasn't it? They did. They looked so well. They were just so porous at the back. I mean, it was pathetic, quite honestly. And yeah, it just looked like, and they got away with it. The defense had been playing well. It looked like Shaw was back in form. Wan-Bissaka was looking good again. Martinez at the back looked like he didn't look as sort of fragile and vulnerable as he did when he first came. And then they just looked like they did 6 to 8 months ago. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they come out of that, whether they respond positively or whether this is the start of a decline, because it could go either way.
Hey, look, I can't help but wonder when I see a loss like this. It's the Timo Werner factor, right? You look at Timo Werner, he's back at Leipzig, not the same player at all, right? Like just when a guy's confidence gets shellacked like that, Dele Alli, I can't help but wonder how do you think there's going to be a carryover for Manchester United after that loss, or do you think they can bounce back because Ten Hag's that quality of a manager?
He's not. I don't think he's going to let them. Let's put it this way. If I was Ten Hag, I'll be dropping some players after that game. Now, if he does, and he should get a reaction when eventually they get back into the side. And that'll sort the sulkers out from the ones who really want to dig in and get back at it. But yeah, he should be pulling rank big time now, Ten Hag. He said he was angry after the game. He should be dropping he should be dropping at least 3 or 4 players after that performance. And then remains to be seen. The guys who come in, they've got to take the chance and make it competitive. Fernandes has had it easy. Since he came, and he's been fantastic. I remember when Fernandes joined Manchester United, and they turned with him arriving the form. They were in terrible form, and he seemed to drag them out of a hole. Well, he needs to look at himself now and dig in again and correct his attitude. He gets hit in the chest and he's holding his face, and it's just no example to the rest of your team. That's not a leader. But yeah, they need to drop a few players, and they all need. Then we'll see if they're up for the scrap or not.
All right, point number 3, Chris. With 3 straight losses now for Leicester City, is Brendan Rodgers the next manager to be fired?
It could well be. They're only, and not many people saw this coming with Leicester. They're 2 points off safety. It's a worrying slide. Chelsea next week and Brentford the week after. Now, if they don't do something in those 2 games, it could be gone, because if they don't, it's so tight down the bottom there that if they don't win those 2 or one of those 2, they could well be in the bottom 3, because results are crazy. Everyone down there is pulling a win out of somewhere every now and then, and everyone's kind of like taking a turn. And so if Leicester don't, there's been rumblings for a while. A lot of Leicester fans aren't happy with Rodgers, aren't happy with the style of play. He kind of he got away with it for the first season, but yeah, it's so tight down there that the Chelsea game, and that could go either way. Brentford, that's going to be a tough one for them as well, and he could well be the next. He could be the next one, him or David Moyes, West Ham. But I reckon he could be the next one to go.
Yeah, look, I think I agree with you. Give him 2 more matches. That's what I would do. Or give him the possibility of 2 more matches. I would look at Chelsea. You could get beat by a Chelsea team that hasn't scored multiple goals in a month and a half. Then if you go get beat by Chelsea, okay, then maybe you have to make a move. But maybe Chelsea's getting right after their win they had this week. I would say you're right. The Chelsea match, the Brentford match, you need probably 4 points out of that for me to feel good about keeping Brendan Rodgers. You lose both of those matches, he has to go, no question. I do hear Simon Jordan say it this morning that there are rumblings out of Leicester that King Power are kind of tightening the purse strings a little bit now that they've got the stadium built and refurbished and all of those things. So that makes sense. I would absolutely buy that, because it's not like it's a great roster. And £7 million that you're spending right now are going to Jamie Vardy, who's giving you nothing at 36 years of age at this point, right? So it's not like, I mean, you're by far your most expensive player is bringing nothing to the table at this point. And that roster's just not very good. Iheanacho, I mean, how many? That's a guy who's a striker for a team that gets relegated. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but he is, or he's a backup at a good squad, right? So I just look around. I like Maddison, but who else on that team are you looking at saying that's a world-class player? There's maybe one guy you could make the argument for in Maddison, and that's it. It's not a great roster. So I don't know that it's Brendan Rodgers' fault. I think he's probably overachieved the last couple of seasons at Leicester. But if he's not the answer, then you have to find out who is the answer. I'll tell you what's not instilling confidence for me in Brendan Rodgers being around within the next 2 weeks. And that's that the board leaked earlier today a list of 4 names that they could possibly be looking at. As someone that's worked in sports media for almost 20 years, that's the kiss of death, because what that is a trial balloon. It's saying, okay, let's see how the fans are going to react to the idea of firing the coach and the possibility of bringing these guys in. And number 1 on that list, Thomas Frank at Brentford. Right now, if you're Thomas Frank, are you leaving Brentford for what you have at Leicester City?
No way. No, you're not going. You're not leaving Brentford, are you? They're on fire at the moment. No, and it's a great point you make, Will, about the budget he's got to work with at Leicester. Leicester really missed it. They missed a great opportunity when they won the Premier League. It only seems like a couple of seasons ago. I know it's 6 years maybe now or so. But they never really built on that. At a time when players would have joined Leicester City, top class players, if ever there was a time, it was going to be then. And they missed that boat, really, and they didn't invest. And now they've sort of gone back to mediocrity. And really, that's where Leicester City have always been. So they're right where they, but for the last 5 or 6 years, Leicester are where they've always been, quite frankly. But yeah, no, Thomas Frank, I couldn't see him. I couldn't see him leaving Brentford. There's absolutely no way.
If you're Pochettino, is that the job you're taking?
Not at this stage. No, I think I could see him back at Spurs. Can't you?
Yeah, I absolutely could.
Yeah,
I absolutely
yeah.
could because they're not going to spend, and that's the one guy that can win with a bunch of young players if you don't spend. All right, point
Mm.
number 4, Chris, has a Sean Dyche magic run out at Everton. Everton back in relegation territory. Another, I mean, frankly, it took them blowing an opportunity and cleared easy win with a couple of dumb mistakes. They end up drawing at Forest this weekend. Do you think we both really we're buying into what Dyche has done? But now I think he's 2-1-3 in his return to Everton.
Yeah, I think I don't think it's gone yet. I think it's still having a positive effect on them because they're showing some fight. It was a decent result against away at Forest last weekend, and they were up twice. They finished 2-2. So that shows you that they've got a bit of fight. They can score a couple of goals. They're leaky at the back, which isn't great, but they got a point. And every week, like I say, every week, those teams down there, it's so tight. There's about, I don't know, 7 points between, I don't know, the bottom, 7 or 8 teams, I think now. So I can still see them having enough. They're all putting up a heck of a fight down there, actually. So it's anybody's guess, quite honestly, who is going to go down. But I think they'll have enough fight because Dyche has got some fight in him, and I think he's not going to let his players roll over and just go down without a battle. So I think he's got I think he's been a positive influence on him, and I think he's continuing to be. It's just not easy. It's just not easy to win any games, but they're doing a lot better than before he was there.
They lost to Arsenal. They lost to Liverpool, and Liverpool's been on fire right now, and Arsenal's gotten things turned back around. It looks like they've gotten it figured out, the issues that they had there for a couple of matches. The Villa loss is a little concerning to me, but frankly, Villa spends £20 million more per year on payroll this year than Everton does. Villa has a better roster than Everton does. They do. So it's not the end of the world what we've seen right now, but I do wonder. You're right. I love the fight, and let's be real. They drew Forest at Forest. Nobody's beating Forest at Forest right now. You know what I mean? There's just they're killing it there. But here's the thing I think about Everton is, man, the amount of fight that they had in that match. Right there. I mean, how many times did you see a scrum happen? 4 or 5 times with a group of dudes that 6 months ago said are just Charmin soft as anybody in sport. So I love to see that they have that. The gray is getting in people's faces. That they're not backing down. They're getting in people's faces. Forrest wanted to take the fight to them. They got right back in their faces as it happened. And I love to see that. And it makes me believe Everton's going to be able to stay up under Sean Dyche. And again, part of it too is just when you look at the losses they've had, Liverpool's a better team. You know what I mean? Villa has a better roster. Arsenal's a better team. It is what it is at that point. You drew Forest. I mean, you're fine. And it is a little concerning, though, to see them get a couple of places out of relegation territory and fall back into it. I get that being concerning for Everton fans. And doesn't it seem like they're just a couple of little mistakes each match away, though, from really making a big turn? Just a couple little dumb things. Like there was the Decore pass that gave up the second goal for Forest. That was just a horrible decision. It was. And I like Decore a lot. But that was a bad decision. And so they've just got to make a little bit better decisions in midfield. And I can't help but think that things will really turn for Everton.
Yeah, they've got it there. Like I say, the big gauge is when you see a team and they're still fighting. And like you say, when there's a controversial moment, and then it's interesting to see how many of the team get behind the guy who's involved, how many are involved, how many want to be, or is he just on his own and everyone else don't care? And you can tell that they care and they've got the passion. And I'm pretty sure that's coming from Sean Dyche and them wanting to win for him as much as themselves, and it's not a bad squad. It's steady, it's steady. They're not too frail, but it's so tight that for all the teams down there, it's like 1 step forward or 2 steps forward, then 1 step back, or 1 step forward, 2 steps back. It's just everyone's eking out a win. And so I think it's going to go down to the wire. And like I say, I think Everton will have enough.
Yeah. So you don't think Everton's going to get relegated at this point?
No, I don't know. Because of the passion that they're showing right now.
I agree with you. I agree completely. Point number 5, Chris, can Manchester City catch Arsenal?
I think they can. And there's a 5-point difference right now. And a big factor in it, and why I really think they can, is because they've still got to play them. They've got to play them at Man City. So Man City playing Arsenal at home. They beat them away. So you wouldn't bet on them beating Arsenal, in Manchester. That takes it to 2 points. That's a win either way. One loss or a mistake or a draw for Arsenal, win for City. There's your 2 points made up right there. And they've both got Liverpool. I think Arsenal have to go away to Liverpool, and I think City have got Liverpool at home. So that's a tricky one. Yeah, Arsenal have got to go away to Newcastle as well. So that's not an easy fixture. Arsenal have been getting out of jail. Have they been getting themselves out of jail? Are they riding the luck, or are we going to say, well? Because if City score in the 97th minute or 95th minute and keep winning, we go, oh, that's what winners do. They go right to the end. Arsenal are doing it. Are they being lucky? Or is this what winners do? It's hard to tell at the moment whether they're riding their luck and their luck's going to run out, or they keep fighting and that's what winners do. So they keep going, Arsenal, but can they get caught by City? I think they can, and I think the big factor is that City have done it before. Arsenal tend to get a bit emotional on the sideline, and that kind of that spreads through the team. So I still think there's a wobble in them yet. There's still 12 games to go, I think, something like that. So I think there's still a wobble in them, and a huge factor of that game against Man City, the City Arsenal game. I mean, that'll probably take care of it after that one. But yeah, they can, and it's just whoever holds on to it for the rest of the season. But yeah, City can catch them, absolutely.
I think they can. I think they will, and I'll tell you what I think it's going to happen too. So if you look at their next three, Fulham,
Did you say
Palace,
you think they will?
Yeah, I think they will. I think City will.
Yeah.
City's going to catch them. The next three for Arsenal: Fulham, Palace, Leeds. They're fine there. City, Palace, West Ham, Liverpool. Frankly, Arsenal may even gain points at that point, right? They may over the next three matches. But if you look from, I think it's April 29th through the second weekend of May, and you look at who Arsenal has, they have City, they have Chelsea, they have at Newcastle. And I think that's going to be the stretch that's going to get them at the end of the day, because during that time, there's Fulham, Leeds, and Brighton during that point for City right after that as well. So I just can't help but think that that's going to be the moment. I think it's April 29th is where you're going to see it through the first 2 weeks of May. That's when you'll see City overtake Arsenal. And you're right. I probably don't give Arsenal enough credit, because when City does something like that, it's just, look at Pep. He's doing it all over again. If Liverpool does that, look at Klopp. This is what you're right. It's what winners do. When De Gea bails out, when Alisson bails out Liverpool, that's what winners do, right? When De Gea does it for United, look at De Gea having to save that team because they're so soft at the back end. When Arsenal comes back down 2-0 or down 2-1, they end up getting a win with a goal in the 96th minute. I'm like, wow, barely escaped yet again. And maybe it's just that we're not used to seeing them there, but it's Pep, and I can't help but think that the grizzled veterans that he has on that squad and the amount of depth that he has on that squad, because you're right, there's still 12 matches to go. At some point in time, I get concerned about an injury as well. And if injuries play into the way that this the top of the table is going to play out at the end of the season, Manchester City is far better built for that than Arsenal is right now. Yeah,
and that point is a good one, because we're getting into the time of the year as well where we said, with the World Cup in the middle, the sort of the fixture backlog, if you like, the number of games coming thick and fast, the condensed season because of the World Cup, then your deep squad is going to make a big difference. It's going to get you out of trouble. And you're right, Arsenal's squad isn't that deep. Hopefully for them, they can stay injury free. But if they don't, they're going to hit some trouble. City, they could get 5 injured and just drop another 5 in. You wouldn't notice. So that'll be a big difference. Good point, that Will.
Point number 6, Chris. Which club outside of the championship is most built for EPL success? This is something you and I have debated away from the camera over the last couple of weeks. If you get to take somebody League One, League Two, or in the National League that you look at and say, man, they just have all the pieces together for them to be able to make a run to the EPL, which team would that be, or which club would that be?
Well, there's a few, and I wanted to look further down than one even. I looked at, if you look at one, there's some old reliables there that have been in the Premier League not long ago, and before that, 70s, 80s, been sort of regulars there like Ipswich, Derby, Bolton, and the like. There's a few of those there. Down in League Two, there's Bradford City. And Bradford City, I think it was 2001, the first time for 77 years, Bradford City were in the Premier League for 2 seasons. And they got relegated. And it was a common story from around that time. Clubs are better run now, and they're more aware of their finances. But a couple of financial mishaps, and they plummeted from Premier League down to Division 4, down 3. Sorry, League 2 now. Yeah, League 2. It's all right. They've changed their names that many times that I've over the years that I'm trying to keep up. But yeah, so now they're in League 2, 4th tier. But they've got the infrastructure there. They've got a decent sized stadium, holds 26,000. They got a manager called Mark Hughes, who used to play for Man United, done it all as a player, done it all as a manager in the Premier League. And they're in the playoffs right now in League 2. So they're ready to go. They're ready to move up one. And I think it doesn't seem 5 minutes since they were in the Premier League. It's 20 odd years. In the grand scheme of things, though, when you talk 2000s, they were in the Premier League. It's not that long ago. So I think they could. There's a lot that could slot in. None of them will be like, there's no Liverpools or Man United's. Probably the biggest club that's not in the Premier League right now is Sunderland, in terms of fan base, stadium, and all that. But there's a lot that could go up, like your Leicester's, Wolves, Brentford's, and the like. The rest, if you like. And Bradford have been one of those clubs. They went down, but they've got everything in place to go back up again because they're financially stable now. They've got everything in order. They've got a decent manager. They've got a decent stadium, and they could go.
I went with Sheffield Wednesday, and maybe you can tell me more about this than from the past. 40,000 person stadium, right? So I'm looking at that saying every match that they draw that they're able to sell out or get 85% full, that just means they're bringing in more money than all the rest of the competition around them in League One or teams that are in League Two or the National League because of how massive that stadium is. And the other thing is that their owner seems to have a lot of money. And so they're owned by a guy who's a tuna mogul. He's a Thai guy. He is from Thailand. He has the largest exporter of tuna in the entire world. He's worth $750 million. And he has meddled, I guess, when he took over the team in 2015, they just kind of planted their flag and said, we're going to be in the Premier League by 2017. He's meddled a little too much in who's in the back and who isn't. But it seems like that's gotten fixed. But with the fan base, the size of the fan base that they have, the size of the stadium, which just means more money than everybody else that they're playing against at the current level that they're at in the 3rd tier of the English football pyramid, I just can't help but think that they're going to hit the championship and move up pretty quickly the way that Sunderland has, where Sunderland's kind of already in the conversation of, hey, let's see what they can do as far as possibly making the Premier League again. I think Sheffield Wednesday's kind of right behind them. Derby County would be the other one. They've been there before, and they finally have solid ownership, but the ownership there maybe not as wealthy as some of the other owners that we see for other English soccer clubs. So I'll say that it's going to be Sheffield Wednesday. If you had to say foot to the fire, pick one, Wednesday's the one that I'll go with. Yeah,
good shout. Big club, massive club, Sheffield Wednesday as well. They've got the history. They go way back in English soccer tradition. They've been at the very top. Been a few years now that they've been out, but yeah, Sheffield's a huge. I mean, Sheffield's a city that's got two big clubs. It's a 2-club city. It's Wednesday and United. Both of them really massive fan bases, so passionate, and yeah, Wednesday is likely to make it and go on up as anybody else. Like you say, the resources are there, the stadium's there, the fan base is there. It's all in place, and a great history as well. So yeah, it'd be good to see Sheffield Wednesday back in it.
All right, point number 7, Chris, and I'm hoping I don't give the kiss of death to your Wolves yet again, like I did the last time that I praised Wolves. Or we'll say for relegation now. Because that's a nice win over Tottenham. They've continued to play well. The one concern they have is, You watch them dominate a match or just play really well within a match or take over a half of a match, and they can't just seem to score. Frankly, they can't seem to get the ball in goal. But they were able to against Spurs, and they've been able to a little bit more often over this last month right now. And what are they, 5 points clear of relegation territory as we sit right now, maybe 6? What about you as lifelong Wolves fan? What do you think about your Wolves and staying up this season?
Well, yeah, the good news is they're 5 points clear of the relegation zone. The bad news is they're 5 points clear of the relegation zone. Yeah, there's just nothing in it. It's what, 2 games, two wins, 2 losses, and it flips again. And another fact, you hit the nail on the head. Like all teams down there, they can't score. A Wolves forward, an out-and-out forward, has not scored a goal in the Premier League for a whole calendar year. It's either an attacking midfield player, or a defender, or an own goal. So your number 9, your Raul Jimenez, Diego Costa, a guy that Wolves bought at the start of the year to get him out of trouble, and after 26 minutes did his ACL because he's done it before and he's injury prone, and never knows why they bought him. But anyway, so no centre forward of Wolves has scored in a whole calendar year. So there lies the problem. They play fantastic possession. They against Spurs in the second half, they did make some more chances and went close a few times, which is the first time I've seen that for a long time. However, because there's a whole bunch of teams down there as equally as bad, if you like, it looks like they're going to get themselves out of it. It seems like this team spirit's there, and I always harp on about the spirit in the team and the personalities and the leadership. And the leadership seems good. Neves as a captain, he's a great leader. The new manager, Lopetegui, I think that's how you pronounce it. He's got everybody on side. He's got the fans on side, players on side, playing well again. Even Traore scoring now. And so yeah, it looks again, it's the kiss of death, and I'll probably regret this in May saying this, but it looks like they could stay out of trouble. Yes.
Yeah, look, I think they are. And the one reason is when I look at the teams that are kind of in relegation territory, there's a lot of teams that I say, what do you do well? Right? Like when I look at those bottom 6, 7 teams, I look at it and say, you don't do anything particularly well. Man, I think the Wolves play outside really, really well. And they shut you down and attack you outside and force you to play through the middle of the field. And I don't know that there's another team that I say there's something they hang their hat on and they do at a really I don't want to say elite level, but at a very high level. Wolves do that. They've also scored in 5 of their last 7 matches, Chris. So it's getting better for Wolves as far as being able to finally pick up that goal, because you're right. You pointed that out to me for a while there that, goodness, it seems like they'll control the game, but fat lot of good that does if you don't score, right? Now they're scoring. And so, maybe they don't need to control the ball nearly as much, it seems like, in some of these matches as well. They're just taking away the sidelines from you. And so if you try to get your fullbacks forward or something like that, Traore's right there taking the ball from you. And then all of a sudden you kind of have to play back a little bit because of how strong they are on the outside, Wolves. So I look at Wolves and I think that that's a team. I think they're going to be safe. I think they're going to be fine. They figured some of this out. You're right. You'd like to see a forward be able to get a goal for them in some point in time during a calendar year. That would probably make you feel better about things. But when I look at the struggles of the teams in that bottom third of the table, I don't know that I look at Wolves and I say, man, they seem to be one team that's figuring things out. And most of those teams up 1 minute, down the next, I don't think they're figuring it out. So that's why I think Wolves is a team that I feel comfortable that they're not going to be relegated this year.
Yeah, I think they're consistently mediocre, and the one thing that Wolves have got is a structure, a shape, and they're hard to break down. They're not getting thumped. Here we go. 4-0 at the weekend against Newcastle. But they're not getting thumped by anybody. Because defensively, when they lose the ball, you can see them all tighten up and the shape's fantastic. Just when they get the ball, it's slowly coming where they look more threatening now and they're getting more chances. But yeah, it remains to be seen. So they're defensively, and this may get them out of trouble. Defensively, they're not going to give up as many points, even though they might not be scoring as many. They perhaps won't give up as many points because they're defensively better than those around them.
Yeah, apologies. Technical issues there on my part. Let's jump to point number 8, Chris, if you're ready. It's so difficult to be able to determine and to predict what's going to happen in the EPL at this moment, week in, week out. So give me the teams that you think are the best.
Lost you, mate. You there? Tell you what. You there, mate?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that.
Right.
A little bit of an issue with the internet going in and out right now.
No worries. Yeah, who's got the best run of form? Is that what we're saying, Will?
Yeah. Right now, it's so difficult to predict who's going to win week in, week out of the Premier League. Which team right now do you think are on the best run of form?
It's a really crazy season this season, isn't it? It's when we do our predictions at the end of every show, it's so hard. Upset of the week, it just goes. There's upsets all over the place. Ones that you wouldn't even dream of happening, but I got 5 teams who are probably pleased at the moment with their run of form. Arsenal, they got run of 4 wins out of 4. City and Liverpool, what are they? No loss in 5. Brighton, they got 1 loss in 6, and Brentford haven't lost in 11 or 12 games now, I think it is.
Brentford hasn't lost since October 23rd. October 23rd is the last time they've lost a Premier League match. Now, Cup tie, they're losing every one of those. But they have not lost a Premier League match since October 23rd.
It's incredible. Drawn a lot, but that's why they're not in the top 4 right now. But it's amazing. Yeah, their form, they'll be so thrilled with that. They'll take that all day long. So, but everybody else, other than those that I mentioned, they're just, it's anybody's guess. Their form's up one week. You think they've turned a corner, down the next for a couple of weeks and back up again. It's so hard to predict. So I think you've got to say Arsenal for the run of form. Last 4 wins. City, their record's pretty similar to Arsenal over the last 6 games, and Liverpool also. And so it's proving the way those 2 are staying at the top of the league. Liverpool are climbing fast and catching the Man United and Spurs up. So, but then when you look down a little bit further, Brighton and Bournemouth, they'll be thrilled with their form as well. Anybody else, you don't know from one week to the next.
Yeah, I have five as well. City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Brentford, Brighton. That's it. And it's amazing that Brighton keeps doing what they're doing right now. But for Brentford, isn't this incredible when you look at Brentford? Like they have the lowest payroll in the EPL by a country mile. Literally they are spending about a sixth of what Manchester United is spending, about an eighth of what Manchester City's spending and Chelsea's spending right now. They're about a fifth of what Arsenal's spending and Spurs are spending. And look where they're at. And to be able to play as well as they are right now, this is another reason why I look at it and I think there's no way Thomas Frank's going to leave Brentford right now for Leicester City. I can't imagine. A big job's a different story, right? Like if it was one of the big 6, all right, that's fine. But or maybe even big 7 now that we have Newcastle doing what they're doing, if you like to put it that way. I could see him leaving Brentford for that. But man, are they playing well. When I look at Arsenal, it pains me to no end to pay a compliment to Arsenal. But the way that they've turned it around after those 3 matches where we kind of really thought, okay, here we go. The thing that's happening in Newcastle right now, I think a lot of us thought that was happening to Arsenal as well, where they're going to come back down to earth. And my goodness, have they turned it around the last 3 matches. So tip your cap to Arteta and the job that he's done with that team.
Yeah, he has. He's done a fantastic team. When you think that they were crying for his head, a lot of the fans who were crying for Arteta's head, the end of last year, wasn't it? Back end of last season. He's done amazingly well. And he's sometimes you can be too stubborn for your own good and really not change. You should change and you don't, But we mentioned in a different show, the fact that he's been around Pep for so many years, you can see the Pep in him, the stubbornness. We're going to play this way, we're going to play my way. And he's got rid of a lot of the deadwood and he's got them all. He's got a young team now playing how he wants them. Yeah, he's done a great job. And Bournemouth, going back to Bournemouth, everything that's wrong with Man United is what's right with Bournemouth. They got a great team spirit. They got great organization. Everyone plays for themselves. They got no superstars. No one thinking they're all that. They're all in it together, and it just shows what can be done with great coaching, buying the right players for the right positions, and buying properly, and wisely. And yeah, Bournemouth are reaping the rewards. It just shows you don't need billions and billions to be able to sustain it. Now they're sustaining it for this season. Whether they can sustain it for next season and the season beyond, we'll see. But yeah, it's great to see that is someone like Bournemouth really upsetting the big boys a lot of the time.
All right, point number 9, Chris, target man. One player you're targeting to have a big match week this weekend.
I think I'm going out on a limb here a little bit. At Chelsea, they eked a 1-0 win the other day. I think it was Leeds, and they hung on. Raheem Sterling is my target man. He's come back. Yeah, I know, Raheem. He's come back. He's back in it. He looks fit. He looked dangerous. I think about Sterling, whether he falls over at the end, which a lot of the time he does at the end of a good run, or he trips over the ball or whatever, he's also good for a goal or two. And every now and then it comes off for him. And he looked dangerous. He was substituted, which was a strange one because I thought he was a good threat for Chelsea. Chelsea has got with the talent that they've got, their fortunes have got to change. Who are they playing? They're playing. They're away at Leicester. Yeah.
Yeah.
So away at Leicester, with Leicester on a wobble, I got Chelsea winning that one, and Sterling's my man.
And clearly we did not discuss this ahead of time because I'll stick with the same match and I'll go with someone else. I think it's Kai Havertz. That's the one that he has scored exactly as many goals in the Premier League as I have since January 15th. So it is not gone particularly well for Havertz. He's having to play out of position right now. I think he's an attacking midfielder and they're putting him up at center forward, and that's not the spot for him. So I think that he needs a little space to create is when he's at his best. And he's having to kind of just run right into the traffic and try to make something happen. But I could see with Leicester and watching to the last 2 or 3 matches with Leicester, if you got pace, you can kill Leicester unless you're just making dumb mistakes like Spurs did in that match. But you can run Leicester out of that stadium. And I think Chelsea's going to. I think Sterling being back is going to help. I think Havertz will finish. So I'm counting on Kai Havertz to be my target man this week. All right, point number 10, Chris, you sent me an article from the BBC last week about this exact topic, and we have discussed this many times off the air. Brighton, how do they keep doing it? I mean, they sell on players. They send, frankly, a lot of the guys you might think might be the best players that are on their roster. They send them out on loan so that they don't have to pay for their salaries right now, or not the full salary anyway. Mm-hmm. Yet look at them. Right now, they're on pace to have the best finish in the history of Brighton Hove Albion in the Premier League.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. When you think 1997, I think it was, Brighton was close to dropping out of the Football League, going into what's now the National League. And for, I think, 7 years, they were playing 70 mile away from Brighton, at Gillingham. They were sharing a ground with an athletics track around them. They didn't have a stadium. It was things were dire. Unbelievable to think that, I think since 2001, now 2011 is when they were sharing their ground. Up until 2011, they were sharing that. Yeah, unbelievable. Great ownership now, great structure, great staff from the owner down with the board, and they've done it by recruiting. They've got this global recruiting network. They recruit really shrewdly. They develop players. They buy talent. They buy potential, really, that's proven in their leagues that they're playing in, and then they develop that talent, and they know that the talent's going to get bought by other teams. They buy cheap, sell for a lot of money, and then that funds the next purchases. Then they're buying 3 players instead of 1, and they've done it time after time after time. What an example of going through the pyramid, going through the leagues. Just shows what can be done. Like you say, they're on track for having their best finish ever. I think eighth will be the best finish ever. Yep. 9th last year.
9th last year was the best finish ever. Yeah.
Yeah. And you look at, they've sold Ben White, Bissouma, Trossard. Glenn Murray was knocking goals in for fun in the Premier League a few years ago. Mopé, they bought for nothing and sold him for Everton. So And they've also got McAllister, a World Cup winner, Argentinian McAllister playing in midfield for them. And so Brighton's names get being put on the map now. And if they can, I think they've been in the Premier League this time about 5 or 6 years. If they can stick around, they're becoming hopefully an ever-present, but they're doing it the right way. They're not overspending, and they're just slowly, gradually building to what they have by smart buys, buying smart and selling well. And they've always got someone to replace whoever they sell. They know they're going to have to sell. They knew they were going to lose their coach to Chelsea, whose name escapes me. I can't think of his name. Thank you. Yeah, Potter. They knew they were going to lose him, and they had a guy just lined up, ready to go to suit the way they play, and he's doing better than Potter did right now. So yeah, it's amazing. But that's how they've done it. They've treated it like a science, quite honestly, and it's worked for them.
Yeah, look, they win like you win playing a franchise and playing a club in FIFA, right? That's what they do. I mean, they get young players with a ton of talent and a lot of athleticism, and then they build them. They send them out on loan to places where if they can't play right now, that's fine. So let's send you out on loan where you're going to get some playing time and you're going to develop as a player, and we're going to keep a watchful eye on you with our football staff and our training staff. And then when you're good enough to be able to play at this level, we'll bring you in. And they've even said, we don't look to buy guys that are Premier League players right now. We look to buy guys that are going to be Premier League players in 2, 3, 4 years. And they've been fantastic at doing that. Now, you end up blowing it, making a mistake, and all of a sudden you find yourself going down because at some point in time you're going to miss. But they're doing this at such a volume right now that they can afford to miss on a player or two because you got 5 or 6 coming behind them, it seems like. So they just keep winning. They just keep winning with the second lowest payroll in the EPL right now. They're at 35 million pounds per year is where Brighton is. Brentford's at 30 million pounds. And you look at everybody else ahead of them is about 15 million pounds ahead of them per season. And that's where Brighton is. And what they're able to do is just incredible. I do wonder how long is it going to be sustainable for them to play at this level. But they still have, look, if they do have a drop-off because they've missed on a couple of these young guys that they sent other places, they sent to other leagues, and they haven't played in Ireland so they can kind of grow up a little bit and playing against grown men, or they send them to, French League 2 or something like that for them to be able to get better. I do wonder, is that a sustainable model for the next 7, 8, 9, 10 years if you're Brighton? But right now you're piling in the dough. You're bringing in money where maybe you can't afford to buy on a player or two. And they're not afraid to bring in kind of grizzled veterans, guys that other teams, you're not going to win a press conference or anything like that, or read the back pages aren't going to be particularly happy about you bringing on a 31-year-old midfielder, you know what I mean, that's been a journeyman around the league for a number of years. But having those guys to have that type of leadership around the young guys that they have to show them how to act like professionals in the Premier League, I think that's also been massive for them.
And like you were saying, if they do miss with a player or two, it's not an expensive miss either.
Yeah.
Like you say, they play the numbers game. They've got a few lined up, but it's not a big, I mean, I've seen Wolves, for example, plow 30, 40 million into a player and it's just not hit, and they've put all their eggs in one basket and that's it. They're done. And so many clubs do that. But they don't. So it's if a player doesn't hit, it's not a big miss, and they go again. And I think they only need a couple more years, and they're going to start attracting. They can start to pay more for players. They can start to do that, and players are going to trust the club and want to go there because Brighton will have been around for a while, and they know they're playing well, and they look after their players, and etc. It's a good club to go to. So yeah, they're not far off now. With the model they've got, I think it is sustainable. It's certainly sustainable for mid-table. Brighton have never won anything. They've never qualified for Europe. But if you look around the rest of the clubs, they're right there with 2/3 of the league right now. Probably the top, certainly the middle of that league. They're comfortable. They're comfortably sitting there. So yeah, they could do this for a good while and keep building on what they've got. So, yeah, more power to them. Great job, Brighton.
Point number 11, Chris, your match of the week and your upset pick of the week.
Well, my match of the week, let's see, both ends of the table. Everybody's going to be looking at Liverpool, see if they build on it. So I've got Bournemouth, Liverpool. And Bournemouth, I felt for them last weekend. They came so close to upsetting Arsenal, so close to getting a point. I thought they were going to get 3 when I saw they were 2 up around half-time-ish or in the second half sometime. And then, you thought, oh, here we go. 2-2, 98th minute, then they heartbreaker for them, and Arsenal win it 3-2. So Bournemouth, how do they bounce back? And talk about fine margins. They would have been 2 places out of the relegation zone. Now they're absolute bottom of the table. So how do they bounce back from that? Liverpool, the 7-0 win over Man United. Can they go to Bournemouth and lift it there and carry on, or will Bournemouth get in their faces and upset them? So I think that's my match of the week. An interesting one, both ends of the table, Bournemouth, Liverpool.
All right, I'll say my match of the week is, and kind of how I do this is a little different. I'm not looking at the storylines as much. I'm just looking at, when I'm watching the match, which one am I going to enjoy this matchup the most?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say it's clashing styles of play in Newcastle and Wolves. And I love, because Newcastle wants to they want to go on the counterattack on the outside. Wolves wants to take that away from you and force you to play through the middle. So who's going to win out that matchup? That's kind of what I'm looking at, is the chess match, Wolves versus Newcastle. Wolves, who have been on a little bit of an uptick the last 7 matches or so. Newcastle's been in a little bit of a downtick the last 7 matches or so. I think that's going to be an incredibly compelling match. And if there's one that I just say, hey, look, if you just are watching because you enjoy the sport and you love the game, that's the one match I would say to watch this weekend. All right, your upset pick of the week.
Well, I need to give myself a good talking to here, because I'm gonna say Wolves are going to upset Newcastle.
I agree.
Away, and Wolves are full of confidence at the moment. Got to say, stuttering Newcastle, they're just misfiring. It's not like it was a month ago for Newcastle. So yeah, I'm like I say, I'm going to regret this. I can't believe what I'm saying here. It's a kiss of death. I need to give myself a finger wagging, but I'm going to say Wolves are going to beat Newcastle away.
Yeah, I will say, and I did this and it blew up in my face a few weeks ago, where I just thought, what are the odds makers thinking? Having West Ham being a massive favorite against a team 8 places up the table from them. I'm going to do the same thing again. How in the world is West Ham such a massive favorite over Aston Villa? Villa seems to have figured out the issues that they had, especially in the middle, right in front of goal. I think that their center halves, they were a problem for a while. I think it was 11 goals in 3 matches that they gave up there for a second. But, man, they've gotten it figured out. So I just don't see West Ham being able to win that match, and I don't understand why Villa's such a massive underdog against them this weekend.
All right.
So if I'm a betting man, I think the best value on the table this weekend is probably Aston Villa over West Ham. Chris, fantastic job, sir. I appreciate it.
Cheers, Will. Really enjoyed it again, mate.
And no broadcast next Monday. You're going to be across the pond, right?
Yeah, I am. I'm going to try and catch a game, perhaps, while I'm over there. Catch a match. I've got to start talking the English way again.
There you go.
Match, game. So I'll catch you in a couple of weeks.
All right, sounds good. Again, this is the Starting 11. Like and subscribe if you like this content. World Soccer Talk, that's what we do here on the Starting 11.